We are gonna go over the importance of using a food scale in your tracking journey. Now, the food scale is not something to be obsessed over. We don't need to cry if we are off by 6 grams of rice, etc. And it is not something that we need to pack in our bag when we are going to family events or out to a restaurant. What we are using a food scale for in the home is for us to better understand what serving sizes actually look like and what portion sizes look like. That way, when we do go out into the real world, we can build plates with confidence. And when we are in seasons of things like calorie deficit for fat loss, if we can be more accurate with our food tracking, the more accurate our calorie intake is and the faster we can get in and out of that calorie deficit. None of us want to eat less food forever, so accuracy can help with that. So I'm going to go over a couple of tips with your food scale today. Number one, we're going to go over packaged food. So you should have watched how to read a nutrition label already. So you know that the calories and macros come from the weight of the product of the serving size. That is what we are going to be measuring when we are using a food scale. So if I'm going to measure out these crackers, I am looking at 30 grams for a serving size. When I'm doing something like that, I usually like to have a container. I'm gonna go ahead and put it on the scale. I'm gonna make sure the unit is in grams like the package says. I'm going to zero it out by hitting the tare button or the 0 button, depending on your scale. And then I'm gonna go ahead and pour my crackers in there, weigh out the 30 grams. That is my serving size. If you don't wanna eat all 30 grams and you just want a couple, you're using it to sprinkle on top of some yogurt, whatever, you don't have to eat all 30 grams. You can just weigh out 15 grams and the app will calculate the difference for you in the serving size. So when we're using things that have a nutrition label, that's how we're gonna weigh them. Other thing that I do want to point out is fresh versus frozen. So if you are taking something that is frozen, you always want to weigh it in the frozen state. That is how it is being tracked on the back of the nutrition label. So I don't want to go ahead and, thaw these out and then weigh them. The density is different at room temperature versus frozen. So we want to make sure for accuracy, if we're going to be using it frozen, we're going to be weighing it frozen. Same thing goes for things like our meat. So if this were a frozen piece of salmon, I would be weighing it frozen because that's how they're accounting for it in the packaging. With it being fresh, I'm going to take the weight of it fresh. The other thing when you are tracking in the app, if you're using a generic entry like salmon because you can't scan the barcode or you just picked up chicken breasts at the local grocery store, you do want to make sure that you are either weighing things raw and tracking it raw or cooking it and tracking it cooked. Either way doesn't necessarily matter. It's just as we cook things, they shrink down. So you get the same amount of protein in a smaller portion size, and that can skew your numbers a little bit and skew your calories. So again, just remember, if we are, let's say, cooking with it, we are going to dice up the chicken breast and put it in a recipe. We want to weigh that raw and we want to track it raw. If we are cooking the chicken breast on the stovetop and then we are cutting it up for a salad, we want to weigh that chicken cooked and track it cooked. So that's when it comes to things like our meat. Other helpful tips is when we are doing things that come in a peel or things like apples that have a core. You're probably going to want to start cutting up your apples so that you aren't accounting for the weight of the core that you're not eating in your tracking. And things like a banana, you do want to either peel it, weigh it, or eat it and then weigh the peel and subtract the difference. That will make a difference in your carbohydrates, and we all want to eat more carbs, right? So we always just want to have consistency with that as well. Then last but not least, things that are in a jar. My recommendation for things that are in a jar, you are going to place the jar on the food scale. You're going to zero it out and then scoop from it to get the weight. That way you're not dealing with a bunch of mess and extra cups and et cetera, et cetera. It's much cleaner this way and much simpler this way. So if I want 30 grams of this peanut butter, I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that it says -30 as I am taking out the peanut butter from the container. And yes, we can all commiserate on how sad 2 tablespoons of peanut butter actually is. But that's another great reason as to why we track, because I think a lot of us were eating a lot more peanut butter before we started weighing and measuring it. So those are some tips and tricks around using a food scale and why we want to use it. If you have any questions or if there is any confusion on anything, you can always drop me a line or you can put it in the Team MG chat in the Team MG app. And there are lots of nuanced trackers in there who are going to help you out as you get started.